Hello everybody, my name is Cooper Naylor and welcome to Cooper Naylor Reports. Today I'm going to talk about what I think about Super Bowl 55, which is going to be featuring Kansas City and Tampa Bay, what I think about college basketball right at the moment, and what I think about the CFP National Title Game that went down almost a month ago, but I want to go back and talk about it a little bit and see what I thought about it. So first I want to talk about the Super Bowl. So, of course, Tampa Bay played in the earlier game last Sunday, and they played against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. And Tom Brady and Tampa Bay came in as the 5th seed in the NFC, and no one thought they had a chance. Well, they came out, and they proved everybody wrong. So, in a game that was 31-26, Green Bay still had a chance at the end to possibly win the game, but a controversial field goal there at the end of the game probably cost Green Bay the game. If not, there were other plays that also hurt by, like, Aaron Rodgers, instead of scrambling and trying to get a touchdown on 3rd and goal, he throws it into traffic and it's incomplete, and he was looking for Devontae Adams. Another one, the last play of the first half, second quarter, where Tom Brady throws the deep touchdown to Scotty Miller, that was a big play in the game. So I think that Green Bay still had a shot at the end. I feel like they gave up too much that they couldn't come back from. So that hurt Green Bay in the long run. Some of the unfortunate plays. Of course, Tom Brady, he threw 3 interceptions, and the Buccaneers still won the game. So, I think that the Buccaneers, they looked very, very strong on Sunday. So, in the long run, I think the Super Bowl is going to be a very interesting game. Of course, if you look at Kansas City, they had to go through the Buffalo Bills Sunday night in the AFC Title Game. And it was a game that Buffalo had the lead early, and then after that, Kansas City just exploded after a 9-0 Buffalo lead. And of course, they got the win 38-24. So, of course, Tampa Bay and Green Bay was the more entertaining game Sunday, but as far as just pure dominance, the Chiefs showed they deserve to go their second straight Super Bowl. And so it's going to be fun watching Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes duel it out in Tampa, which the Buccaneers are the first team in NFL history to their home stadium would host a Super Bowl, and the home team would play in it, which is the Buccaneers. So, of course, they get the home field advantage. That's gonna be a new thing for the NFL, trying to see what it feels like for home field advantage in the Super Bowl. That's interesting to me. Can the Buccaneers use their fan base to help them win the game? Is what I think is going to be very interesting. So, of course, there are other big news in the NFL, like Aaron Rodgers is most likely going to stay in Green Bay, and then Drew Brees, we don't know if he's going to retire yet or if he's going to come back. There's been a lot of very interesting moves. Of course, Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford are going to part ways this offseason, so Matthew Stafford looking to be traded. That's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, and I think Deshaun Watson, he's looking to be traded, and so that would be interesting to see where Deshaun Watson goes. The Indianapolis Colts are an interesting team because they are going to be looking for a quarterback after Phillip Rivers retired. And Phillip Rivers most likely is going to be coaching high school in Alabama. So I think it's going to be interesting to see all the transactions and moves this offseason in the NFL. But I think one team that could benefit from all this is maybe the Indianapolis Colts, because they've got a chance to get a quarterback that they could have for years. I for one, I think Matthew Stafford to the Colts would be a very interesting situation, because I think Matthew Stafford, team him with T.Y. Hilton, and of course you got the run game with Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack, so I think that would be interesting to see with the Colts. And of course, I've said Carson Wentz. Well, I think Carson Wentz at the Colts would be interesting, because Carson Wentz, he did good in his rookie year with Frank Reich being the offensive coordinator. So, well, at Philadelphia. So that would be interesting, but that's not really likely. So I think it's going to be really interesting. But going back to the Super Bowl, of course, some of the big matchups there is going to be Mike Evans against the Kansas City defense. Of course, Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark are two of the bigger stars on that defense for the Chiefs. And of course, on the Buccaneers defense, Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh, big players there. And of course, all the defenses are very big for both teams, so they have numerous players and it's hard to count. And of course, the offenses, Tom Brady has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and I'm not exactly sure if Antonio Brown's going to be playing, but that's big, because it's going to be interesting if Tom Brady can win this game. Because if he wins this is Super Bowl number 7 for Tom Brady. And he would win 6 in New England and 1 in Tampa Bay. So, of course, on the other side of the other offense, you have Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, really good running back. And of course, both teams are stacked. And so, if I'm going to pick the Super Bowl right now, it's a difficult one for me, because it could go either way. And, you know, the Buccaneers look dominant against the Packers, even though they only won by 5 points. And the Chiefs look dominant against the Bills. So for me, it's going to be interesting. I don't know who is going to win, but if I had to put a prediction on it, I'm going to say Kansas City, just by nail biter. I think it'll be a game maybe like 38-35. That's what I feel, and I think Kansas City will win the game. So now I want to shift my attention to college basketball, where it has gotten really interesting in college basketball. Of course, Baylor and Gonzaga are the 2 elite teams in college basketball right now. And of course, you have, Alabama's on the rise with their undefeated SEC record, which the Big 12 SEC Challenge is coming up this weekend, and I'll be watching that because there's some interesting games like Kansas and Tennessee. Alabama and Oklahoma is going to be big. Texas and Kentucky, that's an interesting game. And I really do think this weekend with college basketball, it'll be really interesting. But for me, Alabama is really interesting. Of course, I am an Alabama fan, so not trying to sound biased, but when's the last time Alabama could really say that they were good at basketball? Well, okay, they have had some pretty good basketball seasons the last couple years, but this year, this is their best year since the 80s. And that is a very long time ago. And so, I really do think Alabama basketball has gotten really interesting. And of course, taking on Oklahoma, in my opinion, I don't know if Oklahoma really poses a challenge on this improved team. And I gotta say, I was kind of skeptical about Nate Oates becoming the head coach of Alabama basketball when he did become the coach. But I'll be honest, he's done a really good job. I thought Avery Johnson was the better coach, but Nate Oates has coached them better. And I think that a bunch of these players on the Alabama roster could be drafted in the NBA. So I do think that Alabama's really interesting. Tennessee's kind of been on a little bit of a slide lately, but also I think another team that's interesting is that Kansas is sliding a little bit, and Kentucky isn't looking great this year, not as great as they once were. And let's just be honest, the Blue Bloods of college basketball are struggling. Duke is struggling. North Carolina. Of course, this is the second straight year that North Carolina is struggling. Kansas is starting to slide a little bit. And so, I really do think that this weekend is the chance for a bunch of teams to really see how much that they want it. Of course, this year has been different with COVID and everything restricting it, and so I think that this year has been interesting. But I think that in the end, the Final Four will be going on, and so it's going to be interesting. So now I want to turn my attention to the CFP National Title Game, which was January 11th, and of course, today is January 30th. And so, I think the national championship game was interesting for Bama. It was a game where Bama just cruised along in the game and didn't really have a challenge from Ohio State. It was a game that Alabama won 52-24, but Alabama looked dominant in the win. Now, of course, coming into the game, we were wondering, could Alabama actually put up 50 on Ohio State after their performance against Notre Dame? The answer was yes, because I'll be honest, I knew it was going to be 52 points for Bama. Only thing is, Ohio State, were they going to show up? Were they going to be the same Ohio State that they were the whole season? Or were they going to be the Ohio State that wins 49-28 against Clemson in the CFP semifinal? Of course, it looked like just their normal season game. So they lost 52-24 in the national championship game to Alabama, and Bama would end 13-0. So now it comes up with what is going to happen in the offseason. And of course, Bama is an interesting team right now in college football. Of course, I think there are people who think Bama is not going to do so well. Well, I'm going to tell them that they are totally wrong, because Bama is looking optimistic. Let me be honest. For any person who thought Alabama would go on a slide, I thought it was going to be this year, because they had lost two games the previous year, and they would end, I believe it was 11-2, because they would end up going to the Citrus Bowl and beating Michigan. But, of course, there were a lot of unknowns going into the next season. Like, is Alabama really going to be that dominant now that Tua has gone to the NFL, and you've just lost two of your best receivers in Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs? Well, Alabama stepped up. Devontae Smith stayed. He stepped up. Najee Harris, he stepped up. And Devontae Smith won the Heisman, he is the first wide receiver. First wide receiver since Desmond Howard in the early 90s to win the award. Just shows how good he was in college football. And I think going into next year, Alabama looks pretty strong. I mean, you're going to have Bryce Young most likely as your quarterback. You're going to have a bunch of receivers coming back. Of course, Jalen Waddle went to the NFL. But, of course, John Mechie's going to be there. He's probably going to be your number one threat. And, of course, you have a bunch of other guys going to have to step up. But Alabama is going to be a very interesting team. Now, going on to Ohio State. Now, I'm a little concerned about Ohio State right now because we are not sure how good they're actually going to be next year. Of course, Justin Fields is going to the NFL, and a bunch of their star players are going to the NFL. So, what does that leave Ohio State with? Now, you may tell me, well, I mean, how are you really doubting Ohio State if you're not doubting Alabama? Well, here's the thing. Ohio State is good, but they're not Nick Saban and Alabama good yet. And what I mean about that is this is Ryan Day's really his first chance to get away from some of the players Urban Meyer had and basically bring in players of his own. And is he going to bring in players who are going to be able to bring Ohio State a national championship game title? I think it could happen, but it's going to be interesting to me. Can Ohio State really be good next year? Of course, this past year, they were about the same as Alabama. Were they going to be good? Well, they made the national championship game and lost by 28 to Alabama. So it's going to be interesting watching college football next year. I do think it'll be better than this year. And with that, I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Don't forget, check out my podcast and check out my website, SaberBroadcastNetwork.GoDaddySites.com. Of course, my podcast is Saber Broadcast Network on wherever you can find your podcast. So, go check that out. And with that, thank you for watching, and goodbye.